A budget performance review issued by the Osun state government has allegedly outlined an expenditure of 2 billion naira spent on meals in the governor's office over a 3-month period. According to the document, the amount is different from a sum of 209 million naira spent on personal expenditure in the governor's office. We're now being joined by Godwin Adedayo, who is Special Advisor on Media to Governor Adeleke, to chew on this subject for a while. Good day, and thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, how do we justify 2 billion naira being spent on meals, refreshment, welfare packages in the past 3 months?
Justifying it, I think the whole report is out there on the state's website, how each of these fundings are being used, but we can't do away with oppositions who are peddling fake news around and all stuff, saying 2 million naira was spent on meals, on the governor's office and all that. 2 billion naira, I wonder how many meals the governor eats in a day for him to be spending 2 billion naira in 3 months, So, I mean, there's the breakdown already on the state's website, and it's so obvious, it's so clear to the general public that the office of the governor has different ministries, has different agencies, has different parastatals, that are that these funds are being used for, So they cannot categorically say that the 2 billion naira was meant for the governor's office itself. We have different agencies like Office of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have security agencies, and so many other agencies, right there at the state government. So saying 2 billion naira was used by the governor or the governor himself, I don't know. But the breakdown of the entire report is right there for whoever wants to see on osunstates.gov.ng. They can go there and find out, about the entire 2 billion naira fundings that the oppositions are peddling fake news about.
Well, if you have any more information about the breakdown, that would be nice to know, because not everyone is going to be going all the way there. And then in terms of the 2 billion, I mean, we've seen Senator Adeleke. He looks like he's not missing any meals. That 2 billion naira it's a lot. And we know how the people in our politicians spend. It's not an outlandish thing to think that politicians sometimes misappropriate the levity that is given to them. But at the same time, for us Nigerians, can you, since you're closer to the government house, can you break down exactly what could be used for that 2 billion? Because it also says that he spent 209 million, and this is his personal expenditure. So it seems like there's some breakdown in there. If you could further elaborate, just so we can...
If I'm going to break it down, I wouldn't mention figures, but an overview about the 2 billion naira we're talking about obviously is not for meals, not for food, right? There are several budgets in the governor's office or office of the governor, to state. There was the renovation of the governor's quarters, and certain amounts from that figure, from that funds were used, for the renovation.
Just to interrupt you. Even as a normal human being, 2 billion naira in 3 months, that's a lot of money. Knowing what we're going through within this country.
There are so many. Let me also put it to you that in the governor's office alone, we have about 771 staff, So this 2 billion naira also goes into payment of salaries and all those things, But if the opposition, whoever is peddling this fake news, if they're saying 2 billion naira was spent on meals, I don't know how they came about that figure, But
I'll tell you that budget performance report.
I'll tell you that from
was for meals.
Yes, the 2 billion naira. No,
so
it wasn't.
This is not the opposition.
No, it wasn't for meals. The office of the governor spent this X amount.
In total, you spent 6 billion naira in the last 3 months. 2 billion naira
exactly.
on
That's
meals,
what I'm saying.
Refreshment and welfare packages
exactly.
for officials. 209 million for the governor's personal expenditure. It's on the state budget's performance report. It's not a report by the opposition.
Well, yes, it's a report on the website, but if you look at it very well, I'm saying that there's a breakdown to the governor's office. So if we're saying that 2 billion naira was spent on just meals, that is fake news, right? And I'm trying to break it down for you now. X amount was spent on the renovation of the governor's quarters. X amount was spent on payment of salaries of staff of the governor's office. X amount was spent on agencies, parastatals, and ministries. You understand? So there's a breakdown of all these figures, so nobody should say that 2 billion naira was spent on, how many times does the governor eat? How many times does the deputy governor eat? How many times do I even eat? I'm wondering too, so, let them go on our website. Let them find the exact breakdown. This amount was used for this and that.
I'm wondering, can you give us an idea, of how much the state generated, within the last 3 months, so that we can compare the state's inflows with the outflows?
Well, I'll be talking out of point if I mention the exact figure, but because I haven't really worked with, the Ministry of Budget and Planning, and I haven't worked with the Internal Revenue Service as well, So, if I'm to give, well, I don't think it's right for me to give an estimated figure on air, but the state government is actually making...
Can you confirm if Osun State is actually making money, or is it just spending money?
Every state in Nigeria is making money, obviously, but there are differences in the figures, So I cannot categorically state that this is the exact amount Osun State is making from our internally generated revenue, because I have not been working closely with, the IGR, the IRS, office in Osun State. Neither have I been working closely with the budget and the Office of the Budget and, planning and all that, I am a media, assistant to the governor, special assistant media, so we fetch out information from each of these agencies, ministries, and as we speak, I think before the end of the year, just recently we presented a budget, the 2024 budget, and I know that all these figures are put on the state government's website. So the last 3 months, to include this month and December, obviously, we will put out there for the public to see and know exactly how much the state is making and how much we're churning out in terms of expenses and all those things.
It would also be good to know how much on average is spent by an average governor in terms of how much they have for their, what do you call it? For meals and for gastronomic delights, etc.
If you're talking about the governor himself, let's be very realistic. How many times does the governor eat?
No, not the governor himself, just a governor. The average amount that is allocated to any sitting governor in any of the Southwest states.
So are we talking in terms of a month, 2 or 3 months?
3 months, 3 months, because
I
that's
don't
the
think
figure.
a state governor should be spending, much more, nothing less than about 10, 20 million,
but this is 2 billion.
On welfare and all those things in 3 months.
But really quickly, you seem like a young guy. I don't know. You don't have any gray hairs. You seem like you're of the generation, of this younger generation.
Yes,
and it's confusing to watch you spin what is happening in Osun State. I know it's your job, but you do realize that there's a whole nother generation that needs to eat as well. They need some of the money to go around. And it seems like the politicians that are currently in seat are mismanaging our funds. Nigerians have been crying about it. They have been complaining. You're a media aide, so I'm sure you're on social media.
Of course.
Without getting into spin, is there any way that we can advise or encourage some of these politicians to not go over the top or even go to the top, seeing as everyone is pinched quite hard and the optics of it are terrible?
Well, for me, if I'm to speak generally, how many politicians would I be able to convince? I came in. I came into the political space, to change some things, and of course, time will tell. I've started, and if I'm to speak about Osun State, there is nothing called misappropriation of funds, by any of our politicians, be it the local ones. I'm talking about those who are representing their constituencies at the House of Assembly, those who are representing us at the federal levels and all those things. There is nothing called misappropriation of funds within or amongst them. And the governor himself, since he came into office November 27 last year, 2022, he has been very transparent about everything. There was a time he called all the kings, all the monarchs in Osun State together, opened up the entire budget, opened up the entire account, the state government's account to them, and told them, this is what we inherited committed. This is the depth. This is, it was very open. It was very transparent about everything. So for me in Osun State, and for all the politicians, all the representatives, all the lawmakers in Osun State representing the good people of Osun State, I can categorically tell you that there is nothing called misappropriation of funds. Now, if you look outside Osun State, how many of them would I be able to convince, that, they should be careful how they appropriate and spend,
or even just the optics of it. We're not telling them to nickel and dime. It's the optics.
Exactly.
Well, it's actually a very broad topic, and we have very little time. So I'd like us to talk a little, about the drama surrounding the suspension of the Osun State's Chief George. He was suspended, then later it seems the governor backtracked and said he was no longer suspended. Can you just, tell us what's happening there?
Well, I'm wondering how and why. It's not within my jurisdiction to speak about this, but I'm wondering how and why they brought in the governor into this whole mix and all that. The lawmakers in the states, did their job. They performed an oversight function, and then they came up with the report. But all I can say right now is the fact that the case is with the NJC currently, and they're handling it. So that's all I can say. It's not within my jurisdiction to delve deep into whatever is happening amongst them.
Well, we just wonder how all of these messages or certain focal points are impacting the lives of Osun State indigents.
Well, some of the achievements of the governor and his administration is actually impacting very well on the lives of Osun State indigents, because there's a whole lot of transformation, there's a whole lot of change. Those who have been into the States, some years back and coming in now can tell that there's a whole lot of change. So many abandoned projects by the past administrations are now, being completed. Is it healthcare facilities that we'll talk about? Recently, about 21,000 pensioners, were given free admission into the state healthcare service. So there's a whole lot of commendation going around. Just recently too, the governor received, I think, about 2 awards, celebrating him and commending him for his efforts, and achievements in the state. So far so good. Osun State, is scaling up, and I hope that we get there, in Nigeria.
Well, Godwin Adedayo, Special Advisor on Media to Governor Adeleke.
Special
Assistant on Media to Governor Adeleke. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.